State Route 590 as a 2-lane rural highway our entire lives.
Our entire lives. Yeah.
Hasn't changed, hasn't expanded, resurfaced. Yes, probably something on the shoulders before it got into town.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah. Oh.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy. And when I say everyone, I'm talking to you. If you have chimed in, decided to press play after finding us on YouTube or wherever you're at, thanks for joining us. You are personally part of our growing audience. We're glad you found us. I'm Eric. She's Donna. We're the Real Siblings. And my sister is smiling and joking about all of this. This is a real estate and lifestyle podcast.
I'm just listening there.
And we blend real estate, lifestyle together to give you practical, pragmatic information that you can apply in your next real estate transaction, whether that's next month, next year, or even in a couple of years. A lot of what we discuss is applicable well beyond today and right now. We believe our unique blend will be both informative and entertaining. Our topics vary, discussions go in a lot of different directions, and we always endeavor to provide our listeners with insights into the industry, better equipping them for your next transaction. This episode is brought to you by your local government. And by that, I mean, we are talking eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
The big government land grab takeover.
So do you remember the song from Big River where the guy sings Daggum Government? Anyway.
No, but keep going. You were doing a good job taking your...
No, because then it's like, sorry, sons of bitches. Okay. Anyway, do you remember when we used to practice all this?
I remember when we used to practice this. We've tried to become a little bit more spontaneous and impromptu, as if that wasn't our modus operandi in past episodes.
Correct.
But now, so the reason for today's topic, eminent domain, is because I had shared with Donna an article the other day that had come out here in San Antonio. Eminent domain is when it is determined that some of your personal property as a landowner, whether that's a business, personal, commercial, whatever the case may be, is better suited for public use, then the government will work out a solution with you to compensate you financially for the property that they need to use, or they can really get tough, hire lawyers, and dig in for the long haul to ultimately get what they want. And most of the time, I think that this comes across for most homeowners is widening roads and public utility easements.
Yeah.
Are the two most common.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's sort of what I checked on today because we had discussed buildings going up and you guys having rules and regs about how tall things could be. And Tucson is called the Old Pueblo because same thing. Buildings were not the tallest buildings are like our few downtown and our campus, right? We just don't have tall buildings because they're obstructing somebody's view. But could that change? Will that change? You know, if they're doing infill, I don't know. And that's the size and height of a building, not the taking over of somebody else's property.
Right. Right.
So,
and the particular story that I had shared with Donna is about a business that opened in 1962 here in San Antonio area, down on the southwest side of town, called Oscar's Taco House. Now, that in and of itself going, it is a local landmark. It has been in business for 62 years continuously. At this point, the current owner is third generation. Grandparents started it. Parents already worked through and have left it to their son. And because of growth in the city, urban development, highway expansion, they were notified as a result of a bond election for improvements around the city for the years 2022 through 2027 that they were going to lose their property. This was a vote. This was an election. The city county had decided this is what we want to do. And okay, we're going to put you out of business. The current owner, grandson from the original owners, had been advised for more than almost 10 years that this was a proposed project on the latest bond project and that it was coming. Then this year, they were given 2 weeks notice to close their doors. And while Oscar's Taco House may not have the familiarity recognition that a national chain may have, it's 32 people who are losing their jobs in an area of the city that is not just full of opportunity to replace those jobs and still work in your neighborhood. So to build a new entrance ramp, to make traffic flow easier, a business for 63 years is going out of business. And as of negotiations, that will be June 28th. So as of right now, their website's still active, but they will be gone and long forgotten because it is not feasible for them with the amount they were offered for the buyout to try to open, relocate, and reestablish a business someplace
That's what
else.
I was going to ask. So when you said negotiations, was that the financial negotiation or?
Yes,
Okay.
that was it was financial negotiations first, and then the second was timing.
So I was talking with another realtor friend this morning who's been in business longer than I have, like 40 years. And we were looking up the verbiage that is used, and it was just compensation. So who decides what's just compensation for the owner? What if the owner gets $2 million? That's great. But 32 people lose their jobs, right?
Exactly.
And what does that look like? That's interesting, Eric. I had glanced at it, but I hadn't read the whole thing. And what it made me think about, so I was talking with my friend this morning about it. I live a mile south of McGee Road. McGee was 2 lanes.
Yes.
When I moved here. Actually, everything north of me was 2 lanes.
2 lanes.
And now it's not. And Gil's Aunt Bev and Uncle Dave, backyard back to McGee. They've been there since 1957. And it was a deep yard because back then, when you moved into our area, which was Casas Adobes, it was known as the area of 1-acre lots. So it was a reasonable size lot, and it was deep. And in the back, I know that when Gil was a kid and stuff, they hung out, they had parties back there. People could park their RV or their camper back there. And there was a big group of oleander between them and the street. And just saying there's tall trees in Tucson is a thing, right? You know that the property's been there a long time. But they lost a chunk of their yard when McGee went from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Now, I didn't know them well enough to go say, how much did you get paid? And they still had a reasonable size yard. Everybody along there does, because they were all deep and wide. But at the end of the day, if in fact you bought a property and you paid a premium for a lot, and 5 years later, they're widening the road, and you're losing some of that lot that you just paid your premium for, how much are you getting for it? This has happened a lot down near campus because the main drag, Campbell Avenue, was nowhere near wide enough to accommodate all the traffic through the year.
When you started school, 78?
8. Yeah, good memory.
How big was Campbell at that point? Was it 4 lanes?
Probably 4 lanes, and I think it's 6 now. And the campus itself has expanded. So not only, like the place that was the pizza place when I was in college is now dorms, right? That whole area. So whether the university owned that or bought that, I don't know what happened there. But when you go that way and you go by the football stadium and things down on the east side of campus, you know that there were homes torn down and now people live on a 6-lane road. That's,
Right. And there's I'll just say, let's use your aunt and uncle's property again. So Tucson is not known for having a lot of residential curved streets. Would that be fair? Like a lot of neighborhoods, the road doesn't have curbing.
Some do and some don't, but you are correct. It's not, and we notice it.
Right. So McGee Road, curbs or no curbs?
No, berm, but I don't think curbs.
Okay, berm and shoulder, right?
Yeah.
So when it's monsoon season, there is a possibility that water runoff is different than it used to be because
of the road.
A 2-lane road lets less water run off than a 4-lane road with the center median or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So depending on the topography of that 1 acre, which, okay, I've been to Tucson, it's probably mostly flat, but there is some variation. There's hills and rocks and dry washes, things like that, that now suddenly not only did they lose their land, but did it change
the water
flow and have a potential impact that way that impacts the individual landowner's property value?
Yeah. I'm going to have to look and see if there are curbs now because that's going to bug me.
Next time you drive down the road. But from what you were saying earlier, you were saying their road fronted and they turned into the main house.
So they lived on a street called Coma Bobby, which is one road south of McGee.
Okay.
So they would come into their house from Coma Bobby.
Right. And then the parties and that people would pull off of McGee at the back of the property. It's not like they were driving.
No. Everybody still had to come in. Nobody could.
Okay. So it's not like they lost a back access to get to the property as part of it.
Right.
But still, there's a value to that.
Yeah.
And yes, compensation. But one of the things that helps increase the value is year over year ownership, maximizing the investment.
Yeah.
Did I explain that well?
Year over year.
So when you buy a house and you've owned it for 10 years, on average, every single year it appreciates at 3.1%. So that appreciation has a bigger yield if you own it for 10 years than if you own it for 5 years.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
If you accept a payment for what is reasonable value and you lose
future
30%, do you think they lost 30% of their acre lot?
Yeah, I don't know if they lost 30, but maybe 15 to 20.
So 30, okay, say 20%. They lost 20% of the lot, lower value, and then backing up to a busier street. Does that make it less attractive? So that now you potentially lose some appreciation that way.
Yeah. The other thing that comes up with this, which is I'm thinking about the downtown area, because a lot of the homes in the original downtown area were territorial, but they had porches. And in general, Tucson homes don't have porches.
Have porches.
And so if you think about people moving here from other places coming west, just like always, people bring their techniques and their styles. And it was before one builder built everything. And there was a lot of porches. So are we tearing down history when we're tearing those down? Or I am happy to say the city of Tucson has actually picked up some and moved them and put them into another space so that these homes could be used as art buildings and other purposes rather than tearing them down. Because one of my least favorite things as a person who travels the world and sees 700-year-old buildings is that we tear things down. We just say, we don't need it. And we tear it down regardless of what the history is. We, the generic American country, is not great at preserving history related to that.
No, I agree. You're right. It is nice that they pick up and they have made the decision to move and relocate some of those houses.
Yeah.
Which for some of the older buildings, past episodes where we talked about territorial, we also talked about the Spanish colonial here.
Right.
Spanish colonials didn't have floors beyond dirt.
They just had dirt floors.
And how do you pick up walls with no floor to lift up?
Yeah.
And support that? How do you make that move? There is, when you said that, it made me think there is a particular very small one-room house that is going to be moved for the third time. And it is significant because of O. Henry.
Is it from downtown?
It was originally in towards downtown. And at one point, the author, O. Henry, Gift of the Magi, right?
Yep.
Had rented and lived in this location. Don't know what stories he supposedly wrote while he was there, but he was there, he was writing. So the house needed to be saved. So it was moved from its original location to location number 1. Well, development came up. Now it was picked up from location number 1 and moved to location number 2, which is now being sold for development. And so it is being picked up a third time and moved to a new location. So is it still the O. Henry house if it's not even close to where it was originally at? Did we lose some of the history even though we saved the building?
Yeah. You know, so the other thing that I mentioned to you, and again, I was talking to my girlfriend about it this morning, is Ina Road, which, as you know, where I live, changes names to Skyline, which changes names to Sunrise, you know, because I always say this is how the city
you
came
exit
together.
Ina, right, off of 10?
Yeah.
And then it, just as you keep driving, it changes names.
It changes names, yes. And so as I cross Oracle Road and I head east, on the north side of the road in the Catalina Foothills mountain area, which is our kind of most exclusive. There's probably going to be somebody that will hear this that will argue about that. But it was where people were moving when they were moving up to the mountains out of downtown as the city grew. And where I used to stay in the 70s when I came here, and sheds lived up there and things like that. So now there is a Mormon temple. So the road has been widened, and it's a busy road. It's the main circulation route across the northern part of Tucson, just south of the Catalina Mountains. There's nothing else that really goes all the way across. Okay. So once again, those houses that are from the 60s or whatever that came up the hill that had a 2-lane road, now it could be 6. And there was no stoplights, and now there's stoplights. So now I'm the owner of that property, and I turn and I go out to get on that road, and I can't even turn left anymore. I have to go right and go down and around. And what used to be a mountain view is now a Mormon temple. It's not ugly. It's just not the view that
it's very well kept.
Yeah. No, it's just that not what I bought my property for, you know? And I was trying to figure out today how that was zoned, and I didn't have time to really look because there's very little commercial across there. So does residential include churches? And do you know whether or not with eminent domain, whether or not churches in Texas, or if there's protected buildings that cannot be just taken down?
They are considered special use structures. Churches, firehouses, police station, government buildings, schools are all considered to be special use. There has to be some consideration on where they go. And yes, I know in some cases there has been discussion of, is eminent domain appropriate for something along those lines? Because not all the public wants to go.
And the cemeteries that are protected. What are you going to do with the,
There's a new apartment complex to that end, not too far from me, from a development. And yes, as you move out from Helotes, brand new development.
An apartment complex?
Yes.
Wow.
And it backed up to a residential development, or kind of fronts the residential development. The residential development was built so it was further off of Bandera Road, Highway 16.
Yeah.
And there was this space in between. And the apartment complex bought the space in between the backyards to the front of the roads. And in so doing, they surrounded a cemetery. Now, it's apartments, probably not a big deal, but the cemetery certainly can't grow anymore because of where the landlines are at. Families that have loved ones, past family members who are there, certainly less inclined to go visit, memorialize, remember, spend time with, which is, we have discussed in past about Dia de los Muertos. Mm-hmm. And this is a Catholic cemetery. So there definitely were some times when the ofrenda were set up for Dia de los Muertos. And those are less likely to happen. Yeah. And everybody has their thoughts, everybody has their memories. It's just the mere fact of now it's happening to me. Because in all honesty, if it's not something that's affecting you, you probably don't even think about it. And then all of a sudden it does. I also had used with you as an example when we were preparing for this, that we moved out to our acreage in the hill country in 2002. We've been out here 23 years now. Shortly after we moved out here, there was a push to improve the electrical power grid. The city had expanded enough metropolitan area, felt like they needed to run some major feeder lines of power from a substation to another substation in order to distribute that power.
Right.
As part of that, one side of the road that they were considering had a state natural area on it. And it's like, well, we can't use the state natural area because why would we put power poles in the middle of something that we've designated as a state natural area? So let's use the other side of the road. And the other side of the road was a question of how far out is the other side of the road? Your point in talking about your aunt and uncles on McGee, I've had 6.6 acres. The amount of land I would lose would be very, very minimal. But having been at our house, we back up to a 3,700 acre ranch. There are a couple of cell phone towers, antennas that are in the distance that you'll see at night because it's dark and you suddenly see the lights. But that would have dramatically changed had they decided to take the valley that runs behind our house, put these power poles under the purpose and under the assumption of eminent domain. We need this for, it's better for the public, and sorry, you lose the land. But we not only lose the land, but we would have lost the view, because now suddenly we would have had 120-foot tall steel structures stretching through the valley that right now is unobstructed.
Right. Right. It's happened here too. In fact, some of our power things, I don't know if you've seen the ones that look like saguaro cactuses. They have made them covered and to look like something that sort of belongs.
Right. There was one that was out in Las Vegas. For all the years we went to Las Vegas, there was one that sat on the edge of a huge parking lot that they decided needed to look like a pine tree of some sort in the middle of Las Vegas, because that would be...
It's the same way we had a Paul Bunyan statue here. I don't understand what Paul Bunyan was doing here, but okay.
And I guess the other thing I want to mention on this is one of those things that is, despite all of our best efforts as realtors, professionals in our area, we cannot possibly know what the next plan is.
Right.
That could be coming, that could impact you from a value standpoint. One of the things that's most miscategorized in my MLS is Greenbelt, which supposedly Greenbelt is, hey, there's nothing behind you. That is never going to be, air quotes, going to be developed. However, too many times a utility easement is categorized as a Greenbelt. And if it's already a designated utility easement, for electrical, for pipelines, for cabling, for phones, for whatever it is, that means that it's designated. And it doesn't matter that right now it may be a single pole, it may be a gas line. Once it's an easement, it is an easement. And they can make whatever improvements within that easement that they want to make. So what is currently a 25-foot tall wood power pole with a single arm can suddenly be upgraded to be a much larger power pole. I don't know if you experience it out in your area, but there are neighborhoods that are so close to the power poles, if you go out in the backyard, you can hear the hum of the electric going through the power lines.
A few of them. I had somebody not buy a property one time because they were concerned about that.
Right.
And there was a wash behind. There was never going to be a house there, right? Because you can't build in the middle of the washes. That is the one thing with the green space, especially to the west in Marana. they have required like 30% of their property stay green space, which means the houses might be closer together, but you do have the view fence behind and you have the open desert and things like that. And often the water path, right? For our periodic 100-year, 500-year floods.
Your monsoonal spring rains that can bring something. And
yeah.
So while we like to keep ourselves informed, when you're in a metropolitan area to the size that we are, understanding projects, what's intended, and I think the biggest thing that I see is what the next step is when you have someone who's buying in a new build neighborhood. Because if there's new building going on, there's probably additional new building that's going on.
Right. What section is going to
somewhere there? It's a phase. It's a development.
Yeah.
There's a lot of road improvement that goes directly adjacent to a lot of new developments because, hey.
And then are we going to have a grocery store and are we going to have a bank and
and all the commercial and everything that goes with it. So don't think that because nothing's there, nothing is ever going to be there because there's just too much growth and development in the area.
In all our cities. The guy that I interviewed this morning for the other thing that I do for Up With People, he lives in Great Falls, Montana. And he said it's population of about 60,000. And we were having conversation about smaller towns, cities, villages, whatever that looked like, and how people live. And he was the mayor for 8 years. And he talked about it. It wasn't like he was recognized by everybody or anything like that, but he still talked about a small town feel to things and how they really wanted to protect their people. And I think that sometimes in our cities, like what's happening with the restaurant, for the betterment of the city and the, now we're going to have another highway with another turn with your Texas things that go like this all over the place. The people, those 32 people are just a number. And I think in sometimes in the smaller communities, smaller towns, they're never going to have that. Doesn't mean they're never going to have eminent domain, but they're never going to have that highway going around them to the third or fourth or fifth arena, like Phoenix, right? The 101, the 202, the 303. I told Rich and Susan one time they lived in East California. They were so far west of downtown Phoenix. To the air base that they were at. It's interesting when you say never, because I think for both of us that conjures up the hometown, Lindsey. 450 people, population, highway or Main Street, which is State Route 590, has been State Route 590 as a 2-lane rural highway our entire lives. Hasn't changed, hasn't expanded, resurfaced. Yes, probably something on the shoulders before it got into town. Maybe.
But the curbing, aside from taking the railroad track out and flattening the road right there as it goes through Lindsey, probably not a whole lot that has happened. And unless something dramatic or an extended period of time, let's go 100 years, would change. That's how long never is.
You're right.
So
Eric, I have gotten
eminent domain. It's real. It's a thing. We can't predict it. I'm betting somebody who's listening has probably personally experienced or known somebody who has experienced it.
That's what I was trying to find out.
That's your 1 degree of separation because your aunt and uncle, Aunt Bev, right?
Aunt Bev and Uncle Dave,
experienced it from a property they bought in 1957. And when they bought it, they probably didn't think that was nowhere near in their mind that they were going to lose property at some point because the road behind them needed to be widened.
No. And I think that the people that build that have that foresight are so few and far between. They're the ones that, had 100 acres somewhere in the desert. And I'm like, nobody's ever going to go there. And then they do.
And then they're there And
Yeah.
so that's it. That was my thought on eminent domain. Thanks for letting me express my idea.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You come up with the topics and I go, oh my Lord, I know nothing about that. So should I wrap this up?
Do it, sis. Do it.
Alrighty. Thank you for joining us. And per my brother, sticking with us all the way to the end. We don't take it lightly because we do know that you're all very busy and it's easy to just start and not finish. And we appreciate that you're committing time for us and this podcast into your routine. As we conclude, we hope that our conversation and insights today maybe opened your eyes to some things that you hadn't thought about before. And we hope that you will consider us when you are looking to find that perfect home, create memories, and live a wonderful life. Donna Reed, Santa Claus. It's not just about houses, it's about the lifestyle and a blend of the two. So as a reminder, we are both realtors with Keller Williams, and we are here to assist you. I am in Tucson, Arizona, in Southern Arizona, and Eric is in the San Antonio area, in the Texas Hill Country area. And we would be happy to help you. If you are somewhere else across the United States or even around the world, we do have extensive networks and we can help you find a professional real estate advisor to assist you. So remember, you have a look on your face, Eric. Remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. And until next time, I'm Donna.
And I'm Eric.
And we are
Real Siblings. Thanks, y'all.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling. It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and websites. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.